dear student, welcome to this session. I am Srimati Jayashri, working as an assistant professor at Department of Microbiology in KTHM College, Nasik. Today, I am dealing with the subject Fermentation Technology 2 of TYBSc Microbiology, and the topic is related to the alcoholic beverage, in which we will discuss about the wine fermentation. Wine is a term is basically used for the fermented grape juice, but wine can be made from the different fruits juices also. So the wine which are made from the fruits are called as a fruit wine, such as wine is made from the apple, it's called as apple wine. Wine is made from the banana, is called as a banana wine, or wine is made from the strawberry, is called as strawberry wine. But most of the countries, the wine is made from the grape juice. So these different varieties of grapes are used for the process of wine making. So this grape variety or these wine grapes are slightly differ than that of the table grapes. So these wine grapes are having the smaller size than that of the table grapes. They are having the thicker skin as compared to the table grapes and having the seeds and more sugar concentration than that of the table grapes. Before turning to the wine fermentation, we should know about the alcoholic fermentation. Alcohol, that is the ethanol or ethyl alcohol, is the product of fermentation of the sugar by the yeast cells. For example, the yeast cells converts the sugar like glucose, sucrose, or fructose into the ethanol by the process of fermentation. So this one, suppose one molecule of glucose is converted into the pyruvate by the process of glycolysis, and these two molecules of pyruvate are converted into two acetaldehyde molecules and evolve the CO2 gas. And after these two acetaldehyde molecules forms the two ethanol molecules or two ethyl alcohol molecules with along with the carbon dioxide gas in anaerobic condition by the yeast cells. So finally, this alcoholic fermentation um, produces the ethanol by using these yeast cells. This session consists of wine production and the terminologies which are related to the wine making process. Then the flow chart of wine making process and malolactic fermentation, which is the secondary fermentation in the wine making process. After attending this session, students will understand the key terminologies which are generally used in winemaking process. They know about the microbes or the microorganisms like yeast cells and other lactic acid bacteria which are used for the wine fermentation, which is in primary fermentation and secondary fermentation. Now, students will understand the process of wine fermentation and the different steps which are involved in winemaking. And students will know about the malolactic fermentation. Now, turning to the key terms which are generally used for the winemaking process. So, first, that is the aging. Aging is a process in which the wines are held in a barrel or stainless steel tank or uh, into the bottles to advance them and to more desirable state. Then the second term that is used in winemaking process, that is cellar. Cellar is a room where the wine is stored at a temperature and humidity controlled facility is provided to that room. Then enology is the term which is used for the science of wine and winemaking process. Then the lees is the term which is generally used for the sedimentation during the fermentation, which includes the dead yeast cells Then the solid particles like grape pulp, grape seeds, and skin, and other solid particles which are settled down during the fermentation process is called the leads. Then the must. Must is the unfermented grape juice which consists of skin, seeds, and other solid particles. Next terminology is dealing with the testing term, that is the texture. So texture is a testing term which describing how the wine feels on the palate. Then vineyard is the place where the grape wines are grown and cultivated. Next terminology, that is the viticulture, is the cultivation of grapes and harvesting of grapes. Then the vinification is a process of winemaking. And vitis vinifera is the term is generally used for the species of wine which comprises over 99% of the world's wine. And winery is the term is basically used for the place where wine is made. Now turning to the actual wine production process. Wine production starts with the grapes. These grapes are most widely used in wine production. Different types of varieties are there. So, in which the Vitis labrusca and Vitis vinifera are generally used for the winemaking process. For winemaking process, the microorganisms are used like yeast cells. So, the strains of yeast like a Saccharomyces cerevisiae and Saccharomyces ellipsoideus is used for the winemaking process. So, the optimum temperature for the growth of this yeast is about 25 degrees Celsius or 77 degree Fahrenheit. Now, turning to the which are the basic steps for the production of different types of wine, whether it may be a white wine or red wine. So, first step in the white and red wine production, that is the harvesting, then crushing and pressing. Then third step is the fermentation. Fourth step is the clarification of wine, and last step, that is aging and bottling of wine. The different grape varieties are produces different types of wine, such as the red wines are produced by red variety or black variety or purple variety of grapes. For example, the red wine, which is generally produced by the black variety of grapes, is a Pinot Noir. It is a red wine, and the white wine, which is generally produced by the green or white grape variety, for example, the Chardonnay, which is made from the white wine variety, white wine grapes. Now turning to the flow chart of winemaking process. So first step in this flow chart, that is the harvesting of the grapes. Then second step is the destemming, that is the removal of stem part from the grapes and crushing of the grapes. So after the white wine and red wine production, these are the two common steps. After that, for the white wine making, the pressing is done after the crushing of the grapes, and this pressing removes the juice and separates the solid particles, and the remaining juice is now goes for the fermentation process. But in red wine making process, the after the crushing of the grapes, the solid particles, skin part, and seed part of the grapes, along with the grape juice, is kept as it is for a certain period of time, and where the fermentation of the juice is takes place. After that, the pressing is done and removes the solid particles. Now, after the fermentation process, the wine is stored or which is sent for the aging process. Now, the next step is the filtration of wine. After the aging, the wine is filtered by means of the various types of filters or by means of the racking of this wine. And the last step is the bottling. Now elaborate the all terminologies or all the term, all the basic steps which are involved in the winemaking process. So first step, that is the harvesting. So harvesting is a major part of the winemaking process because the quality of the grapes determines the quality of wine. So over the 4,000 varieties of grapes, which are generally used for the production of wines. This harvesting it starts from the vineyard, where the place vineyard is a place where the grapes are grown and cultivated. So this started early of the September to the beginning of the November, and when this harvesting is done, after the grapes are fully matured. So grapes for the wine production are harvested when they are ripen, then which increases in sugar concentration and decreases in acidity. So during the harvesting process, the sugar concentration is measured by the refractometer. So refractometer is a handheld instrument which is generally measure the concentration of sugar into the bricks. So these grapes are harvested at the bricks of 22 to 28, and the concentration of total solid should be in the range of 15 to 25%, which is based on the grape variety. So harvesting can be done by the hand or by the machines, but most of the winemaker prefers the hand picking of the grapes for the winemaking process. So further these grapes are put into the buckets and into the sent into the barrels and which are transported to the winery. After the grapes are reaching to the winery, the first step, that is the destemming, and is done with the grapes. So in winery, the the grapes are sorted into the bunches, then underripe uh, grapes and rotten grapes are removed from the bunches. Then grapes are treated with 50 to 75 ppm of sulfur dioxide. This treatment removes the uh, or the prevent the other bacterial growth, or it prevent the growth of unwanted bacteria. So, equipments for the winemaking process are also sanitized by the different methods. So, in which the equipments are sanitized by the oxygen based caustic solutions are used, then water and antibacterial sulfide solution are used for this sanitization of equipments. Now, the process, that is the destemming, that means the removal of stem part from the grapes. So this is done, and the grapes are separated from the stem part. This stem part removes from the grapes, and which result in the reduces the tannin content of the grapes. So next step after the destemming, that is the crushing of the grapes. This crushing is nothing but the squeezing of the grapes, which separates the juice from the grape. So this crushing is done by feet as a traditional method, or it can be done by mechanical method. So in most of the countries this crushing process is done by the feet or as their tradition. So men and women are used to be dance over the grapes. So first the grapes are put into the barrels or into the buckets, then the men and women are dance over it, and which produces the pulp and grape juice into the barrel. So this tradition is called as a harvest dance. So after the crushing of the grapes, the must is prepared. So must is remain into the barrel, which consists of unfermented grape juice, skin and seed part of the grapes. So, up to the destemming and crushing, the same steps um, or the common steps for the production of winemaking, that is for white wine and for red wine. But after the crushing process, there are two ways for the production of, there are two different ways for the production of white wine and red wine. So, for the red wine, the must, that is unfermented grape juice with skin and seed and other solid particles, which are sit together for a uh, specific time period, which for the addition of tannin, flavor and color of that particular wine. So time period to sit the must, which called as a maceration. So maceration period is required for the production of red wine, and this maceration period is avoided into the production of white wine. So during the maceration, fermentation is occurred by the production of alcohol and carbon dioxide gas. This carbon dioxide gas is evolved from that barrel, and as the CO2 is escaped from that barrel, it pushes the skin and other solid particles, and which forms the cap, or which forms a layer. So this cap formation is the problem which is facing during this red wine production. So the many winemakers use the punching down or pump over methods to avoid this problem. So in punching down method, the skin and other solid particles are punched down into the juice by mechanically or by hand, or the juice is pumped over the skin and other solid particles, which allows for the skin and uh, tannin content into the grape juice. Now, next step, that is the pressing. So, pressing is done after the crushing in white wine. So, but in red wine, the pressing is done after the maceration period. So, this pressing separates the juice and other solid particles. So, the now after the pressing, the juice is remain behind. So, it's called as a free run, and the solid particles are called as a pomash. So, this pomash is nothing but the byproduct of this winemaking process, which consists of all the solid particles, um, and which can be used as a feed, or which can be used as a fertilizer um, in after the treatment. Then, for the white wine production, pressing is done quickly after the crushing of the grapes, and which avoid the maceration period, which prevents the tannin and the color of that wine. So, mechanical presses are generally preferred by the winemakers, which improves the quality of wine as well as longevity, and uh, which is also used for the sanitary purpose. Now, the next step, that is the fermentation. So, during the fermentation, the juice is inoculated with the yeast cells, and the yeast cells are nothing but the Saccharomyces cerevisiae, which converts these sugars into the ethanol and carbon dioxide. So, this juice, if we juice put for the some time period, then fermentation is uh, starts by the wild yeast in 6 to 12 hours. So, fermentation can be done by naturally as well as by adding the dry yeast or yeast cultures into the grape juice. If all sugars are converted into the alcohol, the wines are called as a dry wine, and for the production of sweet wines, the process is interrupted, or the sweet wine, for making the sweet wine, the by breaking the fermentation in between. So, by locality, which affects on the concentration of alcohol content of the wine. So, in the cold regions, the 10% of alcohol is present in the wine, while in warm region, the alcohol percentage is about 15%. Now turning to the secondary fermentation, which is called as a malolactic fermentation. So many red wines, after the primary fermentations, these wines contains more tannin and more acid into that wine, and which gives the tart taste to the wine. So many of the red wines and some of the white wines undergoes the malolactic fermentation or the secondary fermentation. So this secondary fermentation, which converts the malic acid into the lactic acid, and this is can be done by using the lactic acid bacteria or species of lactobacillus, pediococcus and enococcus species are generally used for the conversion of malic acid into the lactic acid. This malic acid is converted into the lactic acid and carbon dioxide by the process of decarboxylation, which converts the hard wine into the soft wines and which are having the creamy and buttery flavor. So this creamy buttery flavor or this enhancement of the flavor which is comes from the diacetyl component. So this diacetyl is 2,3-butene-dione which imparts the soft, smooth and buttery flavors to the wine, and this is because of this malolactic fermentation process. So this malolactic fermentation also reduces the acidity and increases the pH by zero point 0.3 unit, and which also releases some carbon dioxide. Next step, after the fermentation, that is the clarification of wine. So this clarification removes the tannin, protein and dead yeast, that is the we can say that lees from the fermented grape juice. So this clarification is done by the two methods, by using the filtration or by using the finning agents. So first is the filtration process used for the clarification of wine. So in which the different types of filters are used. This filter acts as our coffee stainer, in which the larger solid particles are uh, removed, and it passes the liquid as well as small particles through the filters. Now, the second method is used for the clarification of wine, that is using the finning agents. So, finning agents like gelatin, casein, egg albumin, and bentonite is used as a finning agent in clarification of wine. This acts as a colloids. So, these colloids are reacted with the solid particles and settled all solid particles at the bottom, or which can say the lees is settled at the bottom. After the clarification of wine, the racking process is done. So this racking process is nothing but the transfer of wine from one barrel to another barrel. After the clarification of wine, the aging is the next step. So aging is a group of reaction which improves the taste and flavor of the wine. So basically this aging is done into the cellar, and we know that the cellar is the room where the wine are stored and stored for the aging purpose, which is having the controlled temperature and humidity conditions. So in the cellar, the wines are transferred into the bottle or stainless steel tank or oak barrel or in ceramic tank where the proper aging of wine can be done. So during the aging process, the wine is matured. So maturation is the any change in wine after the fermentation and before the bottling process. So during the aging process, some laboratory tests are performed to confirmation about the proper aging is done in the wine or not. So the some taste like the pH of the wine, then titration acidity, then a residual sugar, then the total sulfur and alcohol percentage of wine. These tests are done into the laboratory during the aging process. Now the last step, that is the bottling. Bottling is a final step of the winemaking process. So, in which the nitrogen or carbon dioxide gas, which is used to pump the wine into the bottles. So then these bottles are to- uh, topped by the cork or screw cap, and these bottles can be pasteurized. After the pasteurization, this bottle put for the further maturation, or they are sent to the consumers after the labeling process. Now, the moderate consumption of this white and red wine gives the health benefits, like this wine contains the tannin, then anthocyanin, and the resveratrol, which are the antioxidants and which also reduces the risk of coronary heart diseases. Let us summarize all the session. So this first step of the wine making process, that is the harvesting and the destemming. So harvesting is done into the vineyards, and which the collection of grapes in the vineyard, and it is sent to the winery where the destemming and the other processes are done. So after that, the crushing is done after the destemming process. So crushing is nothing but the squeezing of that the grape, which is having the unfermented grape juice uh, and skin and other solid particles, which is called as a must. After that, the pressing is done. So in the red wine production, pressing is uh, not done before the maceration, and in white wine production, the pressing is done uh, quickly after the crushing process. After that, the pressing of wine can be separated the juice from uh, solid particles are removed from that, and after that the solid particles are called as a pomash, and the free run is now uh, sent to the actual fermentation process. After that, the fermentation, that is the production of ethanol into the grape juice by using the yeast cells, that is Saccharomyces cerevisiae is used, or Saccharomyces species, different types of species are used for the production of alcohol into the fermentation process. After the fermentation process, the malolactic fermentation is done for the white wine. That is, it is a secondary fermentation process, and which enhance the flavor of the red wine and white wine varieties. After that, the clarification is done. So clarification can be done by using the finning agents or by using the different types of filters. After the clarification of wine, the wine will be stored or wine will kept for the aging process into the cellar. After the aging process, the filtration, that is the final filtration, is done by using different types of filters. And after the filtration and clarification of wine, the wine is bottled. This bottle are kept for the aging process for 1 to 2 months or 1 to 2 years for majority of the red wines. And after this process, the wine is served to the consumers. And the malolactic fermentation is the secondary fermentation, which is required for the conversion of buttery flavor of the wine. Thank you so much.